Yeah. Hi, welcome to our podcast. I'm Mary Abazia, and with me, of course, is Tom Spitali and Sean Wellham. And we are really, looking at AI in every way we can. And one of the things that has come up is the fog of technology war. And so we're gonna open this up. Who wants to take this one? Tom?
Well, Sean, I think is our historian. Sean,
Oh, that's right. Ron. Yeah.
the fog of war is, something that is commonly known, I think, to a lot of people out there. Sean, what's the fog of war really mean?
In military terms, it revolves around the battlefield, a fast evolving, novel situation. Most battles have never been fought before. So in that ensuing chaos, it's hard to know what's going on in every aspect of the theater, and it's hard to judge where your enemy's strengths and how they perceive things are, and similarly how you are really doing and that sort of thing. So it's a phrase that just means in the heat of change, of something really changing quickly, it's hard to get a grasp on all the key elements. So it creates a little, quite a few unknowns, and you have to be very nimble-minded to keep on top of it and don't make too many assumptions.
Yeah, and it seems like in the fog of war, it's easy to make a lot of mistakes, right? Because you don't have the right information. And I guess what it harkens back to all of us is the well, first of all, the idea, the age of AI, and how people are approaching artificial intelligence, especially in B2B. It just seems like there's a lot of grasping at tools and techniques in a way that could lead to a lot of missteps. And I think it reminds us all of what happened when the internet first became prevalent, and the kinds of things that people were doing back then, and maybe even a little bit later when CRM systems were becoming, normal and very popular in business. So yeah, a lot of things happen when these new technologies come into play. Do you guys remember some of the things that were happening back when the web first became popular? Some of the things that companies were doing, some of the mistakes that they were making?
Yeah, I don't remember specific mistakes. I remember how I used to describe it as everyone understood there was something to be got, but no one quite got it. It was like we understand this. I can go further back than that. I can talk about when I first saw a spreadsheet. I realize I'm dating myself here. But when someone said, "This is amazing," it was Lotus 1 2 3, dating myself even more before Excel. And someone said you can put numbers in here and functions in there, and I'm like, why? I've got a calculator in my pocket, and I honestly, not being a finance person, couldn't really get what it was about a spreadsheet. Now, if you think about how transformational they've been, and how many they've not just helped strengthen and make efficient existing processes, they've created a whole new class of processes of reporting, of methods of sharing data and analyzing data. And it's similar to me. I always think it's similar to that. It's like when you first come across something, you don't quite know what it's going to do for you. And then two, you start playing with it and it does some things that you think are kind of cool, but it's not fully integrated into your operations or your business. It's sort of a stranger who's come to dinner. But over time they move in, they sleep on the couch, they get their own room. Before long, you co-own the house with them, and they're integral to the business. And I think that's where we are with this. It's that not quite sure what to do with this moment, but something is clearly afoot.
Yeah, a couple of times in my life I ran into the fog, and especially when I was working at Basie's forecasting. And I remember we were talking about voice over the internet. It was like, what? And so we were simulating, like using probably a tape recorder to go, okay, and then delay, and then this is what it sounds like, and then how likely are you to adopt this? And then we did Gen 2, and it was like, and then so we tried to simulate, different use cases, if you will, to get a handle on it, so that companies could say, should we invest? How much should we charge? So it's interesting when you're in that very early stages looking around going, I'm not quite sure. My favorite was Intel when they were in their fog. They had all this technology with the TV and and they didn't know at all. So they actually went and created fake living rooms and had the family, they made popcorn and would simulate, okay, now there's this show on, now there's this game on, now you can get your emails on the TV. And they'd simulate and have people respond to how interested and how clunky it was, just so they could start to see if they should create chips to support that type of technology. So it was a big fog, but I like the systematic way of trying to cut through the fog with that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, these
Can I
are
just say that's just such a brilliant example, that voice over internet protocol? Because I remember too, it was such a big thing, and now here we are on a Zoom call, looking at each other. We got video over internet, right? This was 20 years ago. This was the cutting edge of like, oh my God, what are we going to do with this? And now it's just embedded. It's changed how we do business because here's our voice and it's all over the internet.
Yeah, it
Brilliant.
eventually becomes practical. But and by the way, we are eventually going to talk about this fog AI, and there's and there's a solution to the whole thing. But we're setting it up because we're seeing some of these same things happen again. You guys talked about actually pretty good examples. I remember bad examples where very dirty industrial B2B businesses were having, these web experts come to them and tell them back in 1998 that they needed to be fully e-commerce and web enabled to sell their chemicals, right? When, and they were buying it hook, line, and sinker when what they really should be thinking about was, wow, this just is we should be thinking about content and how to educate people who are still going to be buying this stuff from our sales reps for another 10 or 15, maybe even today, is still going on. And you see, but that's just when the technology kind of leads and people don't do the strategic work of figuring out how this is going to impact customers and what their customer needs are and how those needs are going to evolve. Mary and Tell, what you talked about was actually a good example of trying to figure those things out. But we see a lot of people with AI right now just really grasping at what technology should I use, what kind of capabilities do I need. What is our answer to that? Our answer is a simple one, right? Well, what kind of customer problems do you have right now, and what kind of customer problems are going to be around over the next couple of years and are going to emerge, and what are the technological AI solutions that can help you deliver on that? That seems to be the way to cut through things, but I don't see, enough companies asking that question right now.
Well, I think I mean I've been conducting an experiment talking to a lot of different companies about their adoption of AI. And it really shows segmentation at its best because there are some companies that are so afraid of it. They're like, well, like pharmaceuticals, some of them are in heavy compliance, so they're just deathly afraid of doing anything that's going to somehow someone's going to see some of their information, and there are smart ways. You have to be careful, but there's that segment over there. Then there's other, I've talked to some, it's like, well, we're making our campaigns, we're telling our agencies to create images of people using AI, and we think that we can actually even automate compliance with patients. So it's both ends of the spectrum, but it comes back to the culture and the segmentation of those different companies. So yeah, you can do it, but what kind of constraints do you have within your company to adopt
I
it?
mean, you can't make the one mistake. I guess there's two fundamental mistakes you can't make. You can't ignore it. Clearly, it's here to stay and it's evolving. And even if you have concerns about its security or even its accuracy in certain circumstances, be sure of one thing: your customers will be using it. Your customers will be using it to benchmark and look for solutions. And it's like the early days of Google, but on steroids. And when it suddenly became clear that we heard these stats that no one talks about now because they're so ingrained in how we do business. But did you realize that 50% of the C-suite will do a search on your product before they contact you? And we're like, wow, this is a game changer. And it was. 20 years ago. Now, not only do we expect people to have done some basic research, but now with AI, they're going to do some deep research or some contextual research. So you can't ignore it, even if you just have to accept the fact that it's going to impact you. But also, you can't surrender to it. It's not going to, it's, it won't live up to the hype in the short term. If you think you can say to AI, hey, how do I run my business better? How do I improve my efficiency? It's going to give you um, the standard answers because its training set is just the culmination of human knowledge. It will talk about productivity improvements. It will talk about investing in technology and so on. The point being, don't believe all the hype, but don't throw it out either. It's like most of these things, the sensible pathway is somewhere down the middle in terms of adopting it. You've got to evolve with it. You've got to learn with it because it's changing.
I think the middle, from our parlance, is tools, strategic tools that kind of bring you to that middle. You have this thinking that you can just ask AI to create your strategy for you. And as Sean is saying, it's not going to lead you anywhere differentiated or unique. But if you can structure your prompts along the lines of the appropriate strategic questions, you can do some things with AI that we haven't been able to do in the past, and we've talked about them on previous podcasts. You can not only kind of get some really great hypotheses, but you can get really great justification for those hypotheses, and so it accelerates whole process. And then, of course, you've got the AI and the tools. You still need the humans, the people that can look at what looks wrong and what in the experienced practitioner's view doesn't seem to make a lot of sense, and you can make some adjustments there. But I think all of that brings us to the middle that you're talking about, Sean, the opportunity
Mm.
to get some very practical outputs, some very insightful outputs from AI, but you need the tools, you need the humans. If you have all three, the AI, the tools, the humans, you can do it faster than ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah,
is
I
that
think.
nuance. Sorry, Mary, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, I was saying it is that nuance. It can't be emphasized enough. I know I bang on about it quite a bit, but it's the symbiosis between human intelligence and perspective and context and tacit knowledge about your market, your customers. You know stuff that isn't recorded anywhere. If you think of AI as a way of accessing all of the recorded data in the world and applying some best guesses around that data, that's sort of how a large language model works in simple terms. But someone who works with a business whose customers are a certain type, a hardware store, say, or a pharmacy, doesn't matter. They will know things about that market that they couldn't even articulate, that tacit knowledge that runs deep and that experience. Will it ever come to the surface through AI? I mean, some would argue that AI will become all-knowing and truly intelligent, but by that time we'll all be working for them, and there'll be some sort of Armageddon war going on. But if we just accept the fact that they provide an accelerator, a massive multiplier of our own knowledge, and it's how we interact, it's how we question, and the framework we give AI to respond and then interpret those results and apply them back. It goes back and forth. So I just wanted to emphasize that point. It is so critical that the human is in the loop. Otherwise, you'll get the same results as everybody else. You need to co-collaborate, co-create with AI.
And I do like our system. I'm appreciating it more now, our Scout system, where there is a closed portion that isn't shared. So you can take customer surveys, customer data, and do the proper analysis on that. But then there's always gaps. And so to have the ability then to go out and search and supplement that and to put it into a systematic way of looking at it so you can gain insights. I think it's cool. I think, until I run into another brick wall right now, I'm really loving where things are going and really trying to figure it out too. It's okay to have some fog.
Yeah, I think we're sort of optimistic about it. So to be clear, the fog of technology war in this case is where people are grasping at AI solutions for the sake of having the technology and saying, I'm using the technology without a strategic purpose. What we believe is the way you overcome the fog, see above or through the fog, I guess, is to first be very, very grounded in what is your strategic intent? What are you trying to accomplish? And that's in our parlance rooted in customer needs. The beauty of what's going on right now is you can use AI to really help you understand that better than you ever have and quicker than you ever have through this idea. I love what Sean was talking about through leveraging all the recorded knowledge and the AI tools to pull that out and our tools to help make sense of it, but the unrecorded knowledge from the humans, you put all of that together and you begin to understand where your market is headed, what kind of problems you're going to try to solve. And then the AI technological solutions that you choose, beyond that, what you're using to build your strategy and how you're employing it to try to run your business better, create more profit through operational excellence or differentiated value propositions, that becomes a lot more clear. You get a straight line towards what you're trying to accomplish. And now you've narrowed down this huge universe of potential AI solutions to know exactly what you need, exactly what investments that you are going to make, and et cetera. So that's how you overcome the fog of technology war.
Great. Well, we hope that your fog has lifted a little bit. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.